Yeah.
Okay, so you know you don't always get to pick who you have to work with, right? And no matter how big or small your office is, you're sometimes stuck working with people who, well, let's just say they may have some questionable public behaviors. Well, this morning we were tackling some common office etiquette issues with some help from an expert. Rosalinda Randall is the author of the book, Don't Burp in the Boardroom. Great title. Your guide to handling uncommonly common workplace dilemmas. She joins us now live with some advice for the office and beyond. Good morning to you.
That's a crazy title.
I know. It's a title.
How'd you come up with that title?
Actually, I wasn't in the boardroom, but I was walking with a gentleman, and I looked up. He was taller than I was, and he did one of those puffy cheek burps. I call them like I'm not supposed to know because it didn't make a loud sound. And I looked, and of course, you smell that.
That's the worst.
So I thought, okay, that's where it all begins. Those little things.
Okay, let's get some homework out of the way. First question people might ask: well, what makes you an etiquette expert? How do you know this stuff, and why should we listen to you?
Well, you know,
sorry.
That's another room
right.
That's called being a journalist. No, just kidding.
No, what makes me an expert is just, I guess, research. I was trained and certified, but it's mostly research and really listening to people and the presentations that I've done and the comments that people have. And I have a lot of HR connections, and so I'm up to the trends of what they're dealing with at all times.
Now,
Yes.
what are some of the things we can translate into the business world now? Because you spend a lot of time in corporate environments.
Yes.
So what is it that people need to know, I guess, that we can instantly improve on and not look foolish?
I can tell you, if I may, what the last few topics were that they hired me for, and one you will be very surprised is hygiene or lack of it.
Okay.
It just seems to be prevalent, and also attire, either looking like they lack hygiene because it's just wrinkled, or they picked it up from the floor and did the sniff test, is what I call it, and go, it's not too bad. And just presentation, the company's image, and gossiping, that's another big problem, as well as bosses, really higher management, not saying the pleases and the thank yous enough to their staff members. So those are really the top ones that, you know,
So when you do identify a problem, whether it be hygiene or someone perhaps, you know, is burping in the newsroom or making a bad first impression, how do you go in and remedy that? You know,
you said the newsroom.
Oh, the newsroom.
Yes,
Yeah.
I figured
Freudian flip
right.
I got that. You don't let it go.
What I mean, right? So, you know, but how do you go in and remedy that?
It really depends. There are so many what ifs. If it's you work together and say you have a very familiar coworker relationship, and he is, for example, flossing in front of you, and you're not too crazy about that.
I know somebody who used to.
Yes, yes, they do. And that's why it's in there.
I can vouch for that.
You know, maybe at the moment you may not want to address it because we have so many emotions going and just anger or whatever it might be. But later you might say, you know, I just kind of have a sensitive stomach, so when you do that, you know, would you mind turning away? Or, oh, hey, that landed on me yesterday.
But there has to be etiquette from the flosser as well, though, right? Because you have to be able to respond tactfully. If I'm flossing and you say you don't like it, I can't just be a jerk about it, right? And
Well,
say,
you
we'll deal with
can,
it.
and that's
in front of someone, you might be that person.
And you may be a jerk. I mean, there are people who go, well, turn around. It's my office space. You know, if you don't like it, leave. Then you know what you're dealing with. And that's where I think you have to determine, is it worth it to go any further? Or when you start pulling out your floss, okay, it's time for me to go get a cup of coffee.
When does it cross over into HR land?
When you are not getting resolution. Whether you think that person that you're telling it to is going to take it in or get defensive, then I would go to a boss, an immediate supervisor, and then HR. I mean, HR really should be the last recourse. You should sort of follow the protocol at work.
You know, etiquette changes so much as we've gone along, especially in this new day and age where people, you know, bringing social media into this, and so people are having to learn a whole new, I guess, code for how to be polite in mixed company and so forth. How do you address that in the book?
You know, the word etiquette, and I saw all of you, oh, I better primp up, I better sit up. And that's where people think like, oh, no pinkies and which fork do I use? That really isn't how I describe it. Etiquette to me is really an attitude. And I base the whole book, I don't even think the word is used more than once in this book, because I base it on traits. Being courteous, respectful, considerate of others. I mean, the flossing is a big one. Being tactful, and to me, tactful is knowing when to zip it. Sometimes we do not need to
You're in the newsroom
see
saying that? You're on a TV show saying that? You don't want to zip it? On Good Day, D.C.?
Unless it's part of your job.
So, who ideally is this book for? Is this for a graduate? Is this for, you know, how do you give this book? Right, right, without offense.
Yeah, that's another thing. We're going to talk about Christmas after you answer that question.
Oh, right,
Go ahead, answer that question.
Well, it can really relate to just about anything because it's more scenarios. If you have a superstitious coworker and they want you to rub their rabbit's foot before you go to a meeting, and that's not your thing, how do you deal with that? I talk about working with an ex-con or falling in love with your boss or having a romantic relationship. We were supposed to talk about that. Yes.
What about I want to know about gawking at people at work. That's what I want to know about. Yeah.
It depends. Sometimes I go, still got it. You know, it depends.
Depends on if
Bring
you're
it.
or not. Oh, okay. All right.
Workplace romances, check with your company policies and procedures manual. Some of them forbid it. Others say once you've entered a romantic relationship, you need to report it. And most of them do say if it's your boss, that is not allowed at all. But you have to be kind of mature to handle a workplace romance because what if it goes wrong?
What if it goes wrong? Right.
Then what do you do?
So if I buy Allison a Christmas gift and I don't buy these two, is that rude?
Well, we know you well enough by now.
Then I won't buy anybody a Christmas gift?
Dollar bin only has so much in it.
But is that rude?
Give it to her after work hours and no one needs to know.
Keep it under wraps. I like that.
Randall, this is why you are the etiquette expert. And we thank you so much. And also the civility experts. We're going to try to be civil with Wisdom and his lack of gifts for the rest of us. But we thank you for being with us.
And it's a great title.
No need to be civil because you're not getting one.
Oh, man.
Is that rude?
This is how I block out hate.
I think I'm off the air now.
Okay.